Unmute. Oh no, it's unmuted.
No, we're on. No, we're all on.
Hello, chaps. Yeah, I haven't even combed my hair. I'm such a bloody mess. Would you believe that I had forgotten all about the podcast? I was doing that much the last couple of hours. It just went out of my head completely until Justin buzzed the door. And Rasputin Castle, who's going to be on tonight, I hope, God love me, he shouldn't be, because he had sent me a message later on in the afternoon. Then when guests came, and it was just bedlam. I can't even speak. I'm not sort of rushed. Do you know the way you get rushed?
Well, you just settle down, calm down.
Right.
I'll take this one, and we can.
Okay. I hope Rasputin Cattle. Jesus,
Michael
from
Rasputin's Castle.
I hope he sees this is on and
checks his email.
Checks his email. We've sent him it. If you're watching, please check your email, and it's there for you. Just push the button, and the rest will happen.
And once we see you coming in, we'll just get you on board,
yeah,
Michael. So please, for goodness sake, apologies for the inconvenience, but you know what he's like. Yeah, he's lost without me.
I am
without me.
I was last week, wasn't I? Everybody felt sorry for me last week.
Apparently, I'm not allowed to go on holidays now without booking leave. I mean, it's ludicrous.
In triplicate, and at least 6 months' notice.
And yet, the thing about it is, I was so proud of him for giving it a go last week, because I have to say, his troubles with the internet dropping and anything, that could happen to anybody. So at any time, so it's not as if it's the technical difficulties were his particular fault. I'm sure all the other stuff was his fault, but the lack of content, the nerves, the inability,
lack of content,
the inability to maintain a conversation.
I shared from my head. Oh yeah, I get you now. Yeah. Who have we got in here tonight? We have Mickey Newman, Special Ed, Tony's Ponies, Sean, Ghost Malone, Randy.
We don't count Randy.
Retro Stu. I do. Randy's my friend.
He's know what Randy does with his friends. He locks them up in the basement.
Eugene Krabs, sorry about that. I hope you get them cleared up. Jason Glover, Mikey Newman. Did I say Mikey? Tony's Ponies.
No, say Mikey again, because
Mikey again. Did you get the knife today, Mikey? I hope Mikey got the knife today. I don't know what this. I've got Facebook. I don't know what the hell.
No, it's nothing. Don't worry about it.
3 for 30.
But everybody, and T-Fetch, who was probably first in, we're not familiar with you, but you're very welcome, brother. So thanks for joining us.
Don't worry, mate. You'll not have to stay long. It'll drive you insane before long. Anybody gets past 10 minutes here for life.
Oh, well, I mean, the drugs help it, have to be said.
Definitely. Yes, Michael here. Honestly, the poor man. He's contacted me a couple of times. I've said, right, I'm going to do that. And I have the wingspan and the attention of a dodo bird. And I just kept, I don't know what happened. I don't know. I'm not well. Now, can we start on something a little bit serious this week? Because I just want to get this out for maybe people that are around our age, but in fact, it's anybody I'm finding out now. Me and the wife got scammed. Oh, last week.
Yeah, that's right. Which is why it all fell through last week.
Yeah, which is why it didn't happen last week. And I just wanted to, I didn't do it during my normal videos because people don't really want to hear your problems. You just want to look at your videos. But I thought you might be interested to know. Anyway, on Wednesday of last week, my wife was in bed. She hadn't been well for a couple of days. And she got a text message from our daughter, Angela, or so she thought. And Angela said she was out. She dropped her phone, cracked the screen. She was on a borrowed phone and she was having trouble. She had to get this bill paid and she only had her phone with her, so she couldn't get the bank app to get it working. And she said, could you lend me the money till tomorrow? Which is not an unusual request from children, as we all know it. I mean, although mine are all grown up children, but it doesn't matter. You get stuck. Who do you ring? Mum and dad. And that's the joy of being able to be mum and dad. And so it was 814, but I think I got it wrong. I think it was 814.
Oh, it's a sizable wad.
Yeah, it was. So Sally just got it out and said, right, can you send me, she wanted a bank transfer, which is the only thing you can do.
Yeah.
If you can. So it all sort of rang through in her head. Now, bearing in mind, she's sleepy, she's in bed.
And she wasn't well.
No, she wasn't well. And she just thought, daughter's in trouble, help. And that's what mummies do. Well, that was all right. She paid it and She went back to sleep again. That night came and went, and she thought, wondered why daughter hadn't rang her. So she left it the next morning. She thought, well, maybe she was busy because she's at university as well. And so Angela rang her the next day, and Sally said, did you get your phone fixed and get your bill sorted? Because she hadn't paid us back. Sally had checked before, and it hadn't been, and that's not like our kids. Normally they'll pay you back if they say it's tomorrow, they'll pay tomorrow.
Well bred.
Yes.
Well bred.
No, scared.
All right, fair enough.
So as soon as Sally said, did you get his phone fixed? And Angela went, what?
And she knew.
Sally just knew I'd been scammed. And because they'd used her name, she just automatically thought it was her daughter. And
it's that personal touch.
Yes, and they're good at it.
Yeah. Oh, they're
very good at it. Anyhow, we went on to the fraud squad side of banking. They were lovely. They treated us with, there was none of this, oh, for goodness sake, you shouldn't have. They were really pleasant, helpful. We had to read out, there was a load of text that I'd left out, but we had to read it all to them, and they took it all down word for word. They talked us through all the procedures, said, look, it could be anything up to 3 weeks. You mightn't get it back, or you might get it back. We can't promise, but we'll let you know either way. Which was, that's all you could hope for. Look, the money I didn't worry about. My worry was Sally took it really bad, and she felt just, how you feel that pity your stomach, and that she'd been fooled by somebody. So it took her about 3 days to get over it. God, every time you mentioned it, she just broke down in tears. And I suppose I'm not being well. Now she got better the next couple of days, but it just wiped her. We're even talking about it tonight when my son was here.
Yeah,
and she nearly started again, but she can hold it back now. But 3 days she couldn't. Anyhow, the next day after the phone call, we had our money put back in the bank, which I just think fantastic, was absolutely amazing. And I thank the bank. I mean, banks get some great shit at the times, but
and duly, but it's nice to see them working.
They really did work well, and apparently it's one of the biggest scams that's going about. Now I don't know whether it's just the UK or worldwide, but it's just because there is so many about it at the minute. We've had 3 or 4 ones that we spotted for different things, and but you can be vulnerable at any time.
It's very true,
and I think anybody's capable of being vulnerable. So.
I mean, don't see saying that it's crazy how good they are, but there's mom almost got scammed out of her life savings, out of her car and her bank info. They had all her info. It is insane. And I mean, look, my son is 25, and he's very, very IT savvy. He's a gamer, and he builds his own PCs and everything. He knows the ins and outs of it. And he got his Steam account hacked once, and it looked as if all his bank details, his payment details, and everything. It's a gaming account online. Steam account.
Oh, Steam account.
Steam
right.
account. I'll tell you about it later. But it was the look on his face. It was that haunted, traumatized kind of, and that was him, because I mean he's knows what the danger signs are, but anybody can be caught. That's the danger.
And it's funny, the amount of people that we've talked to since about it that have had the same problem, or somebody else in the family has done it. It's scary just how much they must get away with.
Oh, absolutely. There's Mikey. Says
like, you scammers everywhere, you guys. So if you could also make
Mikey, all right, your money's on the way. No
Mikey,
problem.
did you get your knife today?
Let us know.
Because I'm starting to panic, or maybe I've answered you in a text. I don't know what I've been doing today. And my head is
completely fried.
Flustered.
Completely fried. But anyway, what are we talking about after scamming? Hopefully Sally's recovered.
Yeah. One wee bit of news. You remember last week I got my Jack Wolf knives in the Ultim. Well, being as I'm an old fuddy-duddy, I particularly didn't like Ultim. It just wasn't for me. I know lots of you, it sold out. It was the fastest one to sell out. I know lots of you love it, and more power to you. But it just wasn't something that I liked. It didn't click on me. And I was disappointed in that, because the knife is lovely. And I would have kept it because the knife is so good. But I just thought I'd try something. And I went on my slip joint collectors group, and I put up, would like the trade. I got the Ultim. and I would love the blue carbon fiber, or what do you call that?
Carbon fiber.
Yeah, carbon fiber. And a bloke came back from the group. I'm not saying his name because I forgot to. I should have asked if I could do that. A lot of things I forgot today. Came back and said, yes, he would like to do a swap, but he didn't have a knife, so he had to go to Frank on Framer Knives. He bought the knife from Frank, sent it to me, and then I sent mine to him the same day. We both got them the next day today, so he had no wait to get it, which was lovely. And yes, I've got it here.
Show.
And I'm going to show. Now, again, if you like Ultim, look, there's so many people love it. I am not putting the Ultim down at all. I'm going to try and get you. There's not very much blue in this one. There's a wee bit on this side.
It comes up quite well.
Yeah, it comes up on camera quite well. On the other side, there's little flecks. You can see little flecks through it. But just for me, it's more traditional. It's more what I'm used to. And I absolutely love it now. It's been in my pocket. Love it. The walk and talk, usual Jackwolf. I just love it.
It is.
I just love it. So,
well, and I have to say, I love that one. I do. If I had the money for another Jackwolf, I think that would definitely be in the offing. There's Jason saying the Ultim definitely not for me, and I think it is. I felt the same way as Stephen, I must admit. But at the same time, it was really interesting to see a new material being used.
Exactly. And if you don't get an emotion from a knife, from different sides of the perspective of a knife, you're not doing a good enough job. It has to be something that some people will like. And well, you like more, you hope some people more than will like it. And you have there's other covers you could have chosen. But you need to have that split. People have to like or dislike. Otherwise, we'd all be having a plain black handle.
Yeah, exactly. And you'd only ever see one version of a knife. It has to be said.
And yeah, I appreciate he done wood. So far, he's done in this New Year batch, although it's not the New Year. But in the batches he's been doing, we've had wood now, we've had Ultim, and he's changing about. We've had all black titanium, jig titanium. So he doesn't sleep on his laurels. It might not all be done in one batch, which you can't do. You just don't have the time to do that. So yeah,
but I'd like to think it would encourage him to keep on pushing the boundaries.
I have no doubt that he will,
and that'll be interesting to see what he. But we were talking just earlier that I mean, both of us, and I think there's an awful lot of you guys as well would think the same thing. Is that if he got some bone on one of his knives, if he got some more wood. We were looking at some of the stabilized woods that are available, you know.
But you know what?
Because there's a stack of materials that would, you know, really start to, you know, and not start to, but keep the interest alive.
Yes, and it would keep that other traditional side. This is the very modern side. But if you've got one that's just in wood, it gets that traditional people like myself, like you, who go. But can you imagine that in bog oak? Yeah. Wow. That in bog oak with a grey, oh my gosh! And if you could even get a grey blade instead of a black blade.
Well, I mean, he did do a big blasted one for the last one, didn't he? Or was that just the black one?
Can't remember.
No, of course. Well, let's not rely on the memory. Let's not rely on the memory. But this was the other thing I was saying about this one, because this is such a traditional sodbuster pattern. I mean, to me. I know the micarta didn't work out, but this would have been a perfect candidate for a micarta handle.
Yeah, micarta.
But also there's a certain sort of fit to a more classic pattern of knife with more traditional
a dark
materials.
Black wood or a bog
an ebony,
that would be just the perfect thing for me in this, an ebony. But it can be in another knife. It doesn't have to be in this one. Ebony's the one thing I can see the micarta where you said it, the working man's knife, which this is sort of known as. Although this is a very expensive working man's knife, but you know what I mean. It's just, you know, it is that. But yeah, even a G10, really highly polished with maybe, you know, a variation in color through it would have been, you know, and we're saying would have been. This is not a criticism. If you're running a business that you're putting out this sort of high knife, it is scary to put out stuff that you're not sure is going to sell. Who was that?
There's Michael Rasputin.
Rasputin, hey.
You keep talking.
All right, I'll let you talk. Sorry, Michael, it's my fault. I'm so sorry. not the brightest. Yes. So I would think ebony on maybe a future, ebony even on a Barlow. If he's going to do a Barlow this year,
that would be
that same bolster that's on the Barlow I had with the sheep's foot one of the last year. Yeah, that with ebony. Oh my gosh, how lovely would that be? Don't even need
that one.
Oh, that one. Yeah. This one here, which was last year. If he brings this one back, ebony. Oh, please, ebony on that. Oh, gorgeous. Oh, it would be just amazing. No,
Michael, if you check your email, you should see.
I click this link.
You should see something from either Steve S.G. Anderson or Paddy's Potato Peters. I'm not sure which Gmail account I use. I can't remember. But we sent it to you about 7:20. Our bad for not getting to you.
Not me.
Right, his bad for not getting to you in time.
He's innocent. He came and I forgot he was coming.
We'll bring you in at any time, Michael.
Yeah,
so
just
by all means, hop on and we'll get you in. Let us know in the comments if you haven't got it, and I'll send it again to you. Okay.
Ultim is weak compared to Peak. What?
To Peak what the hell? Peak is a comparable material, but better in almost every way except maybe looks.
Right.
How can it be better in every way except looks? Eugene, I don't understand that. I mean, when we're talking, most of the idea is about the cosmetic sort of attractiveness of it. I mean, but I suppose the hardware and quality.
It could be hardware. The scratch, because that Ultim will definitely scratch.
It's sort of like Raphael Noble, the Ultim, really, isn't it?
It's that plastic. That's all it is. But you don't have the Raphael Noble has stuff behind it.
Yeah.
That averts your eye to it.
Yeah.
But the Ultim is very prone, I would say. Well, I've actually seen a couple. Now, in saying that,
I haven't seen this Peak 450.
As a working knife, who cares if it's scratched?
Yeah, exactly.
And that's the joy of this knife. It is, in my head, I know it's expensive, but in my head, it's a working knife because that's what a sodbuster is to me. And I know we don't call it a sodbuster because we're not allowed to. There are other patterns out there that look like sodbusters.
Okay, so addicted to knives.
How much does
Jack Wolf? 275 for these, weren't they?
275. That's what they are most of the time here in the UK. In America, I think it's I'm not sure if it's 300 or maybe just a bit over. But in the UK, 275. Now you're getting S90V steel. You're getting the best hollow grind in the business. And I mean, even over Riat, I think this is a better, because I've had Riat and I've had this, and this is just amazing hollow grind on these knives. This one's maybe not just as, because it's such a shorter blade and a sodbuster blade, it's maybe not that, as like this blade here.
Well, that's got a lot of real estate to work with,
even
it?
Like that's got grind. And the hollow grind is just
it's
amazing.
The top to bottom kind of
the depth rather than So
Red Rooster was saying that he's secretly hoping the little bro will land with red jigged bone inlays.
Oh,
stop it, Red Rooster. This could get positively pornographic if you do.
That's a ridiculous thing to say out loud to an adult of my nature.
That's just filthy. That's just
I'm gonna have to move closer to this. I'm excited.
And yes, Rasputin,
Justin's frightened.
You're again, and that brings us back to Rasputin. Every time we come on air, we're publicly ridiculed.
We just don't tell that to future guests.
What was Paul 13 was asking a loaded question, and I can't remember what.
Well, would Paul 13 ever ask a loaded question?
Oh, here we go.
Right, let's see. Any more trips to the woods? Yes.
Well, we are going to get another trip to the woods, definitely. But it's just between my holidays and the weather of late, we haven't really had the opportunity to.
Michael, hello. Please accept my apologies. I've had a bugger of an afternoon, to say it politely.
I know, I'm not an important person. I know that.
Oh, sod off.
It's kind of like your wife is asking you something, you're like, hey, you want to come on the show? Sure. Hey, how about the login? Oh, well, forgot about it.
Let me tell you, you've been the latest one yet, and the guest I wanted to see more than anybody.
Oh,
So
man.
if that makes you feel any better, I hope it does.
That sounds like what Bilbo said at his birthday party in the Lord of the Rings. Said, I like half of you just half as much as I like. I should. But Michael, very nice to meet you. I haven't had the pleasure, so absolute pleasure to see you at last. So
This is Justin.
thank you very much for joining us, especially with all the inconvenience we've caused you.
Yeah, it's a pleasure to meet you, and you're a lot different than like those emails that me and Paddy were passing back and forth there. You know, he just made you sound horrible.
Well,
now he's starting to get me back. Would I say, look, come here?
Oh, it has to be said, Michael, that the therapy that I'm going through at the minute is definitely helping with those behavioral issues. So,
Yeah.
what can I say? Yeah.
Michael, you might find our podcast a wee bit different than a lot of others. We often set plans at the beginning, or we'll send people what we're going to talk about. And if we ever get round to it, it will be a novelty.
Yeah. Well, that's the best way to do it, really. You know,
it is for us. We like having a bit of a crack, bit of laugh, and but I also like seeing your knives. So we will be getting to your knives. But anyhow, how's your week been? What have you been up to this week? Have you bought anything?
well, yeah. Unfortunately, you know, I'm doing that every week, and that's almost led to divorce a couple times.
Yeah.
And you know, my wife tells me, "You buy another knife, I'm going to divorce you," and I'll be like, "No, you're not. You're not." So yeah, I've got some cool things to show everybody when we get going.
Good.
I got a lot of new stuff. I think you saw that really cool knife here, you know, that I got, and I've seen it on the channels before.
I've seen two of them this week. Are they just new?
They've been around a while,
Are
so
they?
especially this design. It's the Cattleman's Cutlery
Yeah,
from AB American Buffalo
knife and tool.
Yeah, and it's a good knife. I mean, it's not the greatest. It's probably not even as good as some as the Rough Riders. But what I was excited about was the hoof thingy, because I used to own horses, and I wish I would have had something like this when I owned horses. Would have been so much easier than carrying around a horse hoof, you know. So yeah, I've got some nice knives, and then I got some really collectible ones. I got this United States Marine Corps
Hasp knife, is it? Or
yeah, it's a multi-tool. So you're used to seeing the ones that have a bone, and in 1944 they adopted this. And of course, you know, even when I was in the Marine Corps, I got one of these, not with the Marine Corps on it, but you know, so that's pretty cool. And since I'm a former Marine, it has U.S. Marine Corps on it, and that's pretty cool. But
actually, my little grandson, who's in the Navy now, I was Navy, and my grandson's in the Navy now. He's a submariner. But he has just got me, now he's at sea at the minute, so I'll not get it till he comes home. But he's got me the naval knife, you know, the big metal frame naval knife with a marlin spike and a big sheep's foot.
Cool.
Yeah,
he's got me a brand new one. You can buy lots of the old ones. But this is a brand new one. But it was the knife I carried about with me as a teenager. It weighs about 6, 7, maybe 8 pounds. But I carried that in my pocket as a teenager and used it for years. I threw it at trees, everything. It was just... You couldn't have broke it.
I think the great thing about that is you just tie a string around it, like how you have it pull it out of your pocket. You don't even have to cut somebody. Those things were so big you could bash them.
I know you could have just beaten them to death with it, basically.
And again, to distinct this one as well, it's now black. They have. I'm sure it's not Cerakote. It'll be the cheapest paint that the MOD can put on it, but it looks different, and it's a nice thing to show rather than the old grey, silvery sort of knife.
Very nice.
What got you into knives then? Collecting knives, because I'm sure you've always liked knives being a Marine.
Yeah.
But what got you into collecting?
I've only been collecting about 10 years. So
Yeah.
I've liked knives all of my life. And when I was actually collecting pocket watches. And so I'm collecting these pocket watches, and I came across this little, what do they call them? I can't think of the name of it. Little tiny knives. You put them in your pocket. I can't think of the name of them.
Keyring sort of a knife.
Yeah, like a little key ring knife. And this thing was gold, and it was milled, and it dates to the 1860s. But I saw that thing and I was like, wow, that's pretty cool. I got a good price on it. And so I went ahead and got that when I was getting these pocket watches. When I got a hold of that thing, I just couldn't believe the craftsmanship on this thing from the 1860s.
Yeah.
Plus it was really old. Plus it was gold, and it was yellow and green. So that was really unusual. Never seen it green gold. I was trying to figure out, what this was, and took it to a jeweler. They said, yeah, it's green gold. They used to do a lot of that stuff, and green was a really popular color in the middle of the 1800s, in America at least. And that's what started.
Mostly Irish then in America, wasn't it?
Yeah, maybe that was it.
Yeah.
You had that big Irish influx, and
yeah,
I don't know.
The English were all sent to Australia and put to prison, weren't they?
Yeah, me and my daughter were just talking about that the other night. She read a book. It was all about Australia. And she said she learned about the Aborigines, and she was saying, I didn't know anything about that. I was like, yeah, babe, she only went to college, right?
So, sorry, my children are so like it.
Well, it is funny though, because when we're over here, Michael, we get an awful lot of smart Alex doing either YouTube videos or on television, making fun of Americans in terms of especially in terms of geography, right?
Yeah,
and it's about where other countries are. Now, recently, however, they did a thing here in Ireland, just as a little bit of a quid pro quo or a payback kind of thing. They did, and it was just on an Irish TV show, and they were asking college students, university students here, where they thought they were at this particular moment in time, at this exact moment, and they asked them to point out on a map where they were, and they were in Belfast.
Yeah.
Most of them couldn't tell you. They were pointing at the very southern tip of Ireland and everything like that. So honestly, people are just stupid. That's where I'm coming to this decision, and I think we're all susceptible to it. That's the trouble.
But this is why I think you see the kids now. You ask them a question, and they automatically reach for the phone. They don't have to retain anything because it's all in that phone in front of them, and they just have lost the ability to retain information. I just think it's as simple as that.
That reminds me of somebody sitting not too far away from me, actually.
Do you collect this sort of, this is a lovely old pocket watch.
Yeah.
This is a Remington. Oh, there we go. This is a Remington pocket watch. Oh, there you go.
Yeah.
And the lovely covers. Do you still collect the pocket watches then?
I haven't got one in a long time, but that's because I can't stop buying knives. So
do you like this one, a Remington one?
Yeah, well, it's pretty cool, honey.
This is my present to you for the faffing about I've done this last week. I am so sorry. So this will send me your address after this, and I'll get this in the post to you. I'm not using it, so it better go to somebody who would enjoy it more. So
if I send you my address, you're not going to show up, are you?
I wouldn't count on it, Michael.
Justin sent me his.
And he showed up. He showed up. Mike, can I ask you a question? Because Special Ed has asked a question that actually has bedeviled me as well. Here you go. You can see it under there. Why is your channel called Rasputin's Castle?
Do you know, nobody's that, I don't think.
So Rasputin's a different name, obviously. And I didn't want to have a channel name that was like anybody else's. But also, when I decided to do this, I'm doing other things. Like sometimes I post hiking videos, on my channel, and eventually I want to get into other things. When I fish, I'll post fishing videos. So I didn't want to be like Mike's Knives or something, because I want to put a lot of different things on there, and that's why I went with Rasputin. And he's a very interesting character. So it has nothing to do that he's Russian or anything like that. I just thought he's pretty interesting.
Yeah. Yeah. So that, well, it's just, so it was just like a combination. But why the castle, Michael, as opposed to just Rasputin's
That's
outdoor life or something? Why the castle?
It's just a marine thing. So my home is a castle, and all the time I'm talking about it being a fortified castle. Like sometimes, if you pay attention to my videos at the start, I'll say, "Welcome back to the fortified castle." Yeah. So I don't have barbed wire out front or tigers roaming the property or anything. There's no booby traps. It's just, the home is my castle, and it's fortified because I'm in it, quite frankly.
Yeah. Well done. Yeah, you're an ex-Marine. You should just put ex-Marine on the front of it.
Yeah. I like those. Sometimes there's funny videos out where they make fun of rednecks, and like a guy will be breaking in, and then it shows all these guys grabbing up their guns, inside the house. It's like they can't wait for somebody to break in. And my wife makes fun of me that way too. We'll hear a noise, and I'll say, "All right."
Lock and load.
Yeah, definitely not coming now. Yeah.
That's excellent. You've put him off completely there. Not
Zen Alley deep. That's about as deep as we get.
Yeah, very, very true. Very, very true. Yeah. So, I suppose, can I throw something across your boys? Given that I was away on holiday, where is it? Oh, there we go. I've got a couple for you. Here, let me put these.
Yeah, you got me. There you go.
There we go.
Yeah.
Okay, so I was away in Spain on holiday, Michael, and
put yourself up big.
There's us pretty much.
Yeah.
There you go. Now, what I got was when I was in Spain, I didn't, because I was traveling hand luggage only. I couldn't carry a knife with me. What travel on airplanes is like. So I bought a knife when I was out there. So rather than get myself one of my usual sacks or a normal another kind of folding knife that we get, I wanted to get something that would remind me of my holiday. So I got this one, which is a Payares, okay? And I just thought it was a really unusual kind of knife. Yeah, it's a lovely leaf blade with it's almost like a convex. What kind of grind would you call it? It's almost convex, that one.
Yeah, I think it's more just being sharpened with
on the edge.
Yeah, it's just been sharpened. Somebody has put the convex grind on it.
And it's got a lovely rosewood handle. But it is similar to one, I think it's one of the French knives.
Yeah, I'm just trying to find it now for you.
But it's a beautiful slicer. Sure, it takes an edge. I don't know what the steel is. It's mystery steel, but it's a really lovely lockup, good centering, nice knife. And
where was it made?
In Solsona, in Catalonia, in the northeast of Spain. Okay. So it's very, very. I was in Girona, which is just north of Barcelona. So it's traditional to the region,
right? That's the way. And like.
So this was the one I bought for myself, just as a wee souvenir.
Yeah, but so most of the knives, right? Like most of the knives in England came from Sheffield. Not all of them, right?
Yeah.
So I have knives that I know for sure were made in different areas other than Sheffield, but by the end of the 1800s, like 90% of knives came out of Sheffield. And in America, instead of having a city, we had regions. And so the Northeast, up where Connecticut, Massachusetts is, that was the beehive of the start of our cutlery industry. In Spain, it was regional. So there are like 6-7 different regions. Leol is a region. And so knives that came out of there were called Leol knives. And knives that came out of other regions had those names to them. So like your knife, probably the name of it reflects the region and the history.
Yeah, absolutely.
And when you take it, nearly every country in Europe had their own style of knife.
Yeah.
I mean, between Germany and the UK, they stuck to patterns that were quite traditional, by the time the 1800s came.
Yeah.
And they were making knives like Boker and the UK. They still make knives that are that type of a pattern that are European.
Yeah.
But then they were being transferred across to America. And then obviously when they kicked us out and you turned into the American China, you then brought knives out. You made them much cheaper, bigger factories, and it sort of then we just dropped off from then. Unlike most,
It couldn't keep up.
Couldn't
keep up.
Well, we were smarter, but
well, no, I mean, but you were at the time, and I mean that's that. When it comes down to it, it was economic smarts at the end. But it's the trouble with economic smarts is that somebody always comes along who's smarter.
China.
This decade it's China. Next decade it'll probably be India.
I think India is going to be the next
big
thing in knives. I think they're going to get the machinery and all. China's going to take the stuff over to them.
Yeah.
And I think that's what
I was reading recently. The industry moves pretty quick, right?
Yeah.
And I've watched this happen. Like when you had the Chinese knives come out, they were, at the time, Chris Reeve was the high end knife, and then you had some other custom knife makers that was the goal, to try to get to the Chris Reeve type of knife, right? And custom knife makers were trying to do that. They were up at the time in the $300 range, which was really expensive, right? 4 or 5 years, 10 years ago. And then the Chinese, that's when Kaiser, we came out. I can't think of the other one, but a couple of them came out, and their knives were high quality but really low cost. And then Kaiser came in and started producing these very high-end knives that could compete with the Chris Reeve type of knife, right? The custom American knife. But you could buy them for $120, right?
Yeah.
And Americans just ate that up. And they built up a following. And then about 4 yeres ago, they started jacking up the prices. Right.
Yeah.
So they were dumping knives into the United States. And now if you look at Kaiser for their higher end knives that have all the intricate milling and the anodization and high end steels, they're up there with the rest of them, right? And sometimes even higher, they're up in the $800 range. So that's the way the Chinese do it. They dump products into your economy, destroy your economy, and then they're free to raise the prices.
Yeah. I mean, it's very clever. It's an excellent business mode to do. They don't mind losing so much money to gain that big reward at the end of it. I mean, Riot makes some of the best knives in the world.
Yeah, but they weren't that expensive, Riot knives.
No, not at all.
4 or 5 years ago, they were in the $150 range.
I would go even more than that. When I started collecting, locking knives, because over here I didn't even realize there was places to buy them. That's how backward this country is. I mean, I'd always been used to slip joints my whole life. But when I found out I could buy Ganzos from AliExpress, I mean, I was getting a knife that for me was as good as a Spyderco. It had 440C, which wasn't much below what Spyderco had as their main blade, which was VG10. And I mean, I got addicted to Ganzos and buying them. And then eventually over time, like everything else, you move up to the next. But so my Ganzo knives I still have, and they still work perfectly.
Yeah. It's great. It's good to get you interested in whatever else. I think there is a certain secular or cyclical justice to these things, though, because China is about to get it given to them big time in terms of the economy. That you reap what you sow in many ways. Yeah, and it's all going to come back and other things. But in order to change the conversation from a way too serious one for this, I'm going to come back to the second knife that I have here, which is a navaja, which is the traditional knife of Albacete in Spain,
right?
Which is your classic gypsy dueling blade. And now this is an this is a very bad knife. There's nothing quality about this knife in any way, shape, or form. It has got plastic handles, and it's got a loose catch, and all sorts of things.
They all have.
and they all have, as Stephen says quite rightly. And in fact, I'm not sure if I'm closing it
It's
right.
a lovely mechanism though for locking.
Yeah, but it's completely original, and I haven't seen it in anything else. I mean, in the same way that the Open L locking collar is unique to Open L, this locking mechanism is just really weird. But anyway, the story behind this knife is what makes it interesting, because my friend who I was staying with, Valeriano,
You stabbed him.
You're on the right track. But I didn't do the stabbing. This knife was actually evidence in a crime. And Valley is a lawyer and who works for the government. And this was evidence. Now, the case had long since disappeared and it had been gone. And they were about to destroy the evidence. And he requested just to keep it as a souvenir because he'd been working on the case.
Wow.
So he gave it to me. So this knife, which will now reside in my collection, was actually used in a crime.
Yeah, that's a great story.
It is. That's a cracker. You can't buy that at all. No.
Just think it's awesome.
Yes.
No, mind you, no wonder he was caught, because this thing couldn't cut anything. I mean,
so Judd, look up on the internet a site. Just type in Google knives of France.
Well, I've used them.
Huh? Yeah.
Yeah, I've used them. I've got a couple of his knives here.
Knives brands?
No,
Knives of France.
Oh yes,
it's a company in America now.
Well, this is a blog, and basically it's a history.
I read it. Yeah.
History of the knives of France, and it goes through. It's a really good resource. Talks about the history of knife making, and then also he lists all the different types of knives of France. And I had one that I couldn't identify, and it was a really strange knife. Had kind of like a horizontal end to the handle, and I was able to identify it through this website right here. So it's really good, and you can go through and figure out, what that other knife is exactly.
Yeah, that's what I thought you were talking about. Knives of France. There's a company now set up, and it's called Knives of France, but it's in America. And he sells old French knives and new French knives.
Oh, okay.
His prices are really keen.
Yeah, I'd like to get some more French knives, but a lot of them are really rough.
Yeah. But I remember that site actually, because Dan from Blaybridge, Dan Bridge, he had a Predel that he was trying to date. Yeah. And he'd asked me if I knew anything about it. And it was when I was Googling that, when I was just searching on it, it was Knives of France that I came up against, Mike. So absolutely. It's a fantastic resource. It really is.
I don't know whether you can see that or not.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that's the French cock motif, isn't it? That always appears. I'm
not going to talk about French cocks. It's a public show, okay, Judd? Keep it clean.
It's probably the wrong line to go down, Mike. You're quite right. You're quite right.
So, what have you got in front of us you'd like to show us and keep the knife people happy in the chat here?
So I'll tell you, I'm working on a video about ranch knives, right? So I don't know how I got that in my head, but I look at things online and I say, well, that'd be interesting. So I looked into the history of ranch knives, and part of that is knives like this with the hoof pick, right? And so I picked up a few of those, but I'm really talking about fixed blades when we talk about ranch knives. And then I picked this one up. This is an A.G. Russell. It's absolutely a beautiful knife.
It really is.
They call it a horseman. And, of course, it has a really nice hoof pick on it. And so that's why I really got these, is I'm doing research on these ranch knives and kind of trying to put something together there on a history. And this is your original, right? So your
Yeah.
horseman knife. Whoop. Okay, I'm trying to get it in there. Your original horseman knife. This is a Southern and Richardson. If you guys are familiar with them,
Yeah.
great company. But that's the original ranch knife. But the thing that's interesting is after the 1920s with cars, those go away. You really don't see anything until the earliest one I could find, a knife like this was actually made by Schrade in 1960, and it was made in Ireland. So it's an Ireland Schrade, right?
Yeah.
And that's the last could find anything like this being made until, like 5 years ago, I think. They started making them. So
yeah, Rough Rider make a nice one too.
Yeah, Rough Rider Case makes one.
Yeah.
Right? And it's cool if you're just collecting knives. Like I like knives like these, right? So
yeah,
I would be interested in this if I owned a horse, right? In America, about 4 million people own horses, somewhere around there, and that would be a perfect tool. And that's part of the video I'm going to be producing, but also I just like unusual knives, so this is a different kind of blade, and I buy knives like that, that have something a little unusual.
Do you know, during COVID over here, a lot of people were buying those knives to open doors and work.
Oh yeah.
They were actually, because they couldn't use the handles. They didn't want to touch the handles, and they were using them to open doors and windows.
That's right.
And that's where I sort of came into knowing about them myself. And then I watched your video on the other knives, the ones with a hoof that wraps around the end. And I've been on Etsy ever since trying to find one. And I have one found. I'm just waiting until his price becomes sensible. Because the price they have on it is just crazy.
It's
they're $14. I mean,
It's funny. My wife used to keep a horse, and I mean, she would always wander around the yard with a hoof pick in her back pocket, which is almost exactly what you've got on the knife there, but it's just like a simple plastic handle. So it's kind of ironic now. I mean, her horse unfortunately died about 11 years ago. So it's now that I started collecting knives, and now I've just finally found out that you can get equestrian, basically horse knives. She would have absolutely loved it totally as thrifty.
It's a recent thing, and I think it's a gimmick. I don't know. They may have sensed the need in the equestrian horse industry. There's 700,000 ranches in the United States. There's still plenty of cowboys, and nowadays, they use four-wheelers, motorcycles. They even use helicopters, but they still ride a lot of horses. And so you need, like I used to always carry a horse pick in a saddlebag. So, it was an extra item to carry. But if I had something I could carry in my pocket or on my side, I would have much rather have done that. And when I was out riding, I would stop. And every time I watered my horse in a stream or whatever, I'd clean out his hoofs while he's drinking, because they get rocks and things in there, and it aggravates them, and then they're disagreeable, So I was always cleaning my horse's hooves out. And then also you need to do it when they're in a stall. So if you stall your horse for a long time, they'll get all kinds of fungi and viruses in there. You have to clean them out.
Yeah. But that's the thing, though. I remember because I used to clean out the horse every now and again, and the two things that you need when you're working with the horse is that you need the hoof pick, but you also need a knife to cut the twine that binds your feet if you've got or your bedding. So you need a knife and you need a pick. So the combination that you've got there is absolutely perfect. And I mean, to be able to have that in one, because she would always have carried two tools to do that. So it's having it in one. The thing that makes me laugh is that Swiss Army knives are renowned for allegedly having a hoof pick in them, because everybody always says when they're going through the tools, they're used to in the old days, like before I knew what I was talking about, they used to say, what's this tool for? Because nobody could quite figure out what it was
Oh,
for. And he used to say, oh, it's to pick the dirt out of horses' hooves. My wife took one look at it and said, you'd do the horse an injury if you went anywhere near it with that.
Yeah.
So it was never, ever designed as a hoof pick.
So I've
you
got
know.
a lady's knife that dates back into the 1800s, pearl handles, made in Sheffield, and it has, if you look at a sportsman's knife or a horseman's knife, you'd say that's a hoof pick, but the knife's like 1.5 inches, right? So what that is for, why is that on a lady's knife so small? You can also use that horse pick to clean your boots out. And
Of course.
think about that. So in the 1800s, you didn't have paved streets. Even the cobblestone streets were rare. And so, that's another reason that you would see a hoof pick on a knife that might not, you wouldn't think it's sturdy enough to do a horse's, right? Thomas Jefferson had a knife that had a hoof pick on it, and that's exactly what he used it for. They said he used it to clean off his boots before he came in the house.
Yeah. I watched the video last week, and it was a boy who was off-roading, and when they go onto the gravel tracks, the stones get stuck in the big treaded tires, and he took out a hoof pick and was getting the stones out of his tires, out of the tread in the tire.
Yeah.
And I thought, perfect. This is going to, maybe going to be controversial here, which is not like me, but I often hear people saying, they like blade shapes, and I think it's nice that there's different blade shapes, obviously, because they're nice for the collecting wise. But if you've got a knife in your pocket, no matter what situation you're in, it's a knife. You can adapt whatever's in your hand, right, to cut anything. Do you know what I mean? And sometimes I think people get very fixated. I like all worn shifts, so I need that for detail work. I mean, even with a spear point, you can still do detail work. All right, it mightn't be as comfortable, but it'll still do it.
Yeah.
And I think people do tend to get very transfixed on one knife for one job.
The right knife for the job, kind of thing.
It's the knife in your pocket will do you. If somebody's caught in a lift and they're not going to ask what shape of blade have you got. They're going to want you just to cut whatever it is away.
Exactly. All right, Michael, before we go on, I've got to address some of the chat, the issues that have arisen in the chat, and they are issues. Okay. First of all, Thrifty.
Yeah.
I am not as foul-mouthed as Matt. We all know that Matt has got the biggest potty mouth of all of us. I'm sorry about that. And Randy, please do not disrespect my people. Okay. Hobbits are not filthy. They may use bad language, but they're not filthy. Okay. Finally, this is just six gun slinging. You can, if wishing only made it so. Swearing in an Irish accent is a glorious thing and a privilege for all of us. However, it is as nothing compared to swearing in a Scots or a Glaswegian accent.
Yeah,
they have turned it into an
actually
art
Dubliners
form.
are really good as well.
Dubliners
it nearly sounds like they're singing at you while they're swearing.
Very true. And of course, Italians are probably the best cussers of all, I have to say. But finally, TK, don't be ridiculous. I would still need a boost up onto a Shetland. I had a Falabella. Now, naff off. Okay? So, sorry for the distraction there, folks. We just needed to get to deal with that kind of sort of thing. So, what else? So, are you planning on doing a sort of then series on the ranch knives, Michael, or is it?
I'll do a video and hopefully it'll only be around 10 minutes, and just talking about when you talk about something like a ranch knife, the thing about knives is it's regional, so your idea of what a certain type of knife was for and used for might be different than in Spain, or it might be different in America. It could be different from the South to the Mideast, or. So I just wanted to cover, those type of knives that people consider ranch knives, and you know, they came out of a specific time period around the 1900s, and they're still popular today. But you might call it a hunting knife. I know, like Patty likes a lot of knives that are smaller, in the 3-inch range. And that's kind of like a ranch knife. Ranchers like that too.
Yeah.
So it just depends.
It's just, I mean, it's like I always say, if I've got a knife blade that's 2.5 inches of cutting edge, that will cover me for anything I'll ever want to do with a pocket knife. 2.5 inches cutting. I like between 2.5 and 3 inches of cutting edge, and then I know I'm safe.
Yeah. I like big knives. I mean, I've always liked them since I was a kid. I've liked big knives. So,
what did you carry as a Marine?
In the Marine Corps, it was just a little pocket knife, and I carried a K-bar. Like if you went out on maneuvers, you were issued a K-bar, but they don't. Most of the equipment when I was in the Marine Corps was not issued to you, so you had to draw it. For the type of exercise you were going on. And so if you were going on like a exercise to Norway, you drew cold weather gear. Yeah. So, you didn't have to have all that stuff around all the time. You didn't have to take care of it. It was all held. And my K-bar, I used a K-bar when I was in the Marines from 79 to 93, I think. And so they were still using the K-bar in 93, but they went on to the Ontario knife that they adopted. I think it was the 03C maybe. And that was a bayonet that was also you could use as a utility knife. So that's what I used. I also had one of these, so I had one of those, and and when I was in the Marine Corps, that's what they would give you.
Yeah.
Just a US. This is made by Camillus. It's a 1984, so.
I mean, nearly all the services had their different type of that kind of a knife, didn't they? Or was it exactly the same knife that went through all the services?
I did notice like this is let me give you so this is a utility knife right here. Whoop, let me see right there, right? That's a Schrader-Walden utility knife, and this is the same size, right? Let me see if I can get it. And so I did wonder why they made those big, huge, robust, heavy knives for the English. And I think they just didn't trust them to be able to take care of them or know how to use them.
Well, it's funny. Well, the one I have, where was the one I have? I don't know where it is. I'd probably not be able to find it now. But the one that I have that I used was a more of an army type knife, but it was much thinner. Oh, here it is. Yeah. This one. This is and this one had a marlin spike on it, and it had the lovely big sheep's foot.
Yeah, and that's smaller, but the older ones were a lot bigger.
Were massive, yeah. I mean, I'll have to be doing a video when the son brings me the new one back, but it's exactly the same size as the older knives that I used to carry about. But this is a lovely, exactly sort of the same as yours, a bit deeper, but
I think I saw Gus actually do a review of a variation on that, which was a new sort of souvenir issue of but in brass.
Right.
So the weight on it must have been absolutely immense, So
I think they make excellent camp knives,
Yeah.
In my videos, when I show those big army class knives from England, that's what I'm telling people is that they make an excellent camp knife. They're robust, strong, and
I got this a couple of weeks ago, and I have to say I have fallen in love with it. This is the big case clasp knife.
Yeah.
Beautiful. And this handle material is bone, and it's jigged bone. And I just think it is or not bone, sorry, jigged wood.
Yeah. It's
Which,
prop wood. That's what I have. I think it's prop wood.
yeah, this is it's probably stabilized wood, but it's definitely wood where it's been jigged. And
Yeah.
there's another maker over here in the UK who I got a wood jigged from, and that's the only two that I've ever really seen.
Yeah, they're fantastic knives. You know, they came out in 1922.
Right.
The 65, I think it was let me remember this. 6265. 6265. So the two-bladed clasp knife, and then they had the single-bladed one. And that was in response to Remington's.
Yeah.
What do they call it? Trapper. Yeah.
Yeah. I have the big Remington as well. I'm
Yeah.
actually getting more and more into big knives recently, but this is another beautiful one. This is in green wood, and this is jigged, and the jigging on this, the boy does it all by hand. It is just stunning. Beautiful little Barlow.
Is that from the UK?
Yeah, Stephen Cocker's his name, and he works for. It's a large company over here, and they still make the George Wilson home, the Joseph Rogers. They make about 4 or 5 different brands in the one place, and he's one of the workers in that place. But he does private work. This is just a private.
He's on Instagram.
Yeah, Stephen Cocker. He's
worth following actually, because he produces. I mean, that's a single-bladed knife, but most of his work seems to be multi-bladed knives.
He's taken that, whereas Ashley would nearly be all single.
Yeah.
He is, and him and Ashley Harrison are very close friends too. They sort of started at the same time.
Yeah, it's good to see those young cutlers, making knives. In America, there are thousands of them, and it didn't used to be that way. It used to be maybe 100, but a lot of these young guys really were interested in knives and had artistic ability and went into it on their own and learned on their own.
Yeah.
And that's the great hope, I think, of the cutlery industry, because you hear a lot of criticism about Case, and I've heard people really demean Case employees, people working at Case. The truth is, they're not cutlers. Okay,
no,
they haven't been. They're machine operators, right?
Yeah,
that's basically what they're doing. And so they really don't have the training that these custom knife makers go through, right? How to forge a blade, how to form a blade, how to develop a blade geometry, how to stabilize wood, because you can't just throw wood on a knife, right? It has to be stabilized first before you can put it on. And how do you form all this stuff, and how do you do pins? And that's cutlery. Yeah. And that's the great hope that I see in America with the custom knife industry, is it's robust, right? It's active. There's a lot of interest in it, and new people come on the scene every day. And over the past couple of years, I've seen that in England, where a lot of new people are popping up that are producing knives. I think it's great. I wish they had a better outlet. And that's why I told you, Patty, we should just get an import agency, and because that's what England needs. England needs an outlet, right?
It's starting to happen. That fella on All About Pocket Knives, James, I think it's James Mayer or James Brand, on All About Pocket Knives, he's now selling Ashley Harrison, well, not Ashley Harrison, Arthur Wright knives, Taylor's Eyewitness. And he's selling their basic knives cheaper in America than what I can get them here in the UK.
Yeah.
So I mean, it is starting to head over that way.
I think part of the problem as well is the volume that they can produce. Yeah. Because they're in many ways one man bands. They can't turn out the kind of volume to meet the demand that they might necessarily be generating.
Actually, he's the manager of the shop for Arthur Wright, and he looks over all the boys that work there. I mean, they have some full cutlers, but they've a lot of other ones that are brought in and taught how to do a specific task, just one task rather than a whole knife task, because you couldn't afford to do that now. It's just, and
Yeah.
that's why they can sell the knives at 30
Well,
years.
look, in the past, the way that happened was a guy, he had an idea, he had a product, and he went to a financier, somebody who had the money.
Yeah.
And that still goes on today, and with entrepreneurs all over the world. They have an idea, and somebody's willing to put up some money because they believe in them. And I think that'll happen in England eventually. I think these guys who are making really, really quality products will be recognized, and somebody will finance them, and that's all they need, right? So some of them probably don't want that. They're happy making a few knives, but there's other people who would like to see their name all over the world, and all they need is an outlet, and all they need is some financing, and that's there. There's the thing about money is there's really not enough place to I've got a financial background, and there's not enough places to put the money that's available in the world today. So they're always looking for
investment
place,
opportunities.
Investment opportunity, a place to put money.
It's funny you should say that. In Sheffield now, where nearly all the knife making is done, there's very few. There's maybe a few custom makers around the country, but in Sheffield, where they've got the big factory still, there's only about 3 apprentices at the moment.
Yeah,
going through now. This is another wee bit of news that you don't know. We had Ashley Harrison and his father have been training up an apprentice now for about 3 years, and she's a girl, and she is fantastic. She's so keen, because they get pretty poor wages. It's like an old apprenticeship. It lasts 5 years, and that's just to become a very basic cutler. You got to pass the exam with your showpiece and all. But I mean, this week she has just started making her own knives, or not this week, but 2 weeks she started making, but she had some for sale. So that's the bit that I was going to tell you about later on. So she started now selling to, she's not selling as in you order. You have to know her, and it's her friends and family she's doing knives for. I just happen to be one of her friends.
I thought you'd forgotten about my birthday yesterday. I know you really remembered. Yeah.
No.
Oh, bugger.
I don't even buy my wife a birthday present
What's
anymore.
the point in turning 58 if you can't get a present?
Was it your birthday?
What?
Happy birthday.
58
Everybody
years
say
old.
happy birthday. Sing in the comments. Congratulations, Justin. I didn't know that at all. Yes, so she's actually just started, and this is about 3.5 years into her apprenticeship, where she's been allowed to make her own knives. And I think that's an amazing feat, because a lot of young people today wouldn't wait 3.5 years to make anything, the whole way through. And she's not been allowed to do it the whole way through, because it's been stage after stage, and repetition after repetition after repetition, until she gets each stage right. If you go back in our chat, we had her on for an interview one night. Beth. She's called Beth, and she is an absolute dream. Yeah, a really lovely girl.
She's a gem. Although, Zen Ali, you mind your mouth. We have to. We're not having any of that talk here. We have to make this as safe as possible for Beth. She's like a daughter to us. So you watch yourself.
So she's hopefully going to come back on the podcast soon to let us know what it's been like to make her knives properly for the first time.
You ought to do a video with her. We
did,
Watch her do some clips of her making the knives and what she goes through.
That is difficult, because she's still working. She's still a working apprentice, so she's on the shop floor making knives now, all the different aspects of knives. And then Ashley, who's her mentor, if you like, she'll be with him, and then out of hours, he's teaching her more and more how to do the fancier stuff. The customizing stuff that Ashley would do. Yeah. So, but I don't think they get a lot. I think she works horrendously long hours.
I'm sure
well.
She does.
But we're going to get her on, and we'll talk to her anyway. But hopefully next year, myself and Justin are going to go over to. We've been invited over to the shop. We were invited this year, but we couldn't make it. But next year we're going to do a shop tour, and we're going to go around Arthur Wright's shop tour and all the different stations, and that will be amazing. Because Ashley's workshop is like something out of.
It is. It's something out of Victorian times.
It is. Yeah.
It really is. It's just dust and
Metal
heavy
filings.
and heavy machinery. It's
Yeah.
awesome. It really
Yeah.
is.
He still uses machinery that mostly 100 years old.
Yeah.
So I'm
That's
looking
cool.
forward to that. That'll be a great weekend away, I think, next year.
That's really cool.
Right, guys, it's actually we're well past our normal witching hour of an
You're
hour.
joking, isn't it?
Michael,
Oh,
it's
God.
an hour and 10 minutes, and even though we started late with you, it's my usual duty, sad as it is, to wrap things up before people start to slip into a coma in the chat, because I mean, they've got a very short span of attention at the best of times, and then they get unruly and rowdy, and it all kicks off. So we're going to draw it to a close.
Yeah.
Michael, absolute pleasure to meet you.
Right.
Thank you so much for joining us.
And
Yes.
Michael, I want to have you on again, and we'll talk about knives properly, and
Yeah, anytime.
bring a great selection of your knives, because I mean I followed from you started doing YouTube channels. I've been following you, and I just love your mannerisms that I love, and the way you project it on the table. I love it. I can sit and listen.
History.
I would love you to make half-an-hour videos, 40-hour minute, where you're doing a full video on a particular subject, because I can listen to you all day long, and if I can do it, there must be at least another one of us out there.
Not all.
You're just a strange man, Stephen.
Yeah, I know. But some of us, Michael, not all of us need half an hour to say something. You're efficient, Michael, and this guy just rambles on.
I just go on.
Yeah,
But
that's
I'm
what's
having
fun.
fun with that.
That's
Nice
what's
thing about
fun to
knives.
listen to Stephen, right? He's
Say
fun.
that again.
I said that's what's fun about listening to you.
Don't encourage him, Michael. Don't encourage him.
I just ramble. I have the attention span of a goldfish. But it's been a real joy having you, and I really do. I'll have you on shortly. Have you back on again and see some of the most beautiful knives. You have an amazing collection. And the nice thing about Michael's knives, if you haven't watched his channel, before you leave here, go and sub to him and hit the like button before you leave here. But
Stephen.
he has knives that are not perfect. Some of them might have a chip in them, in the bone, or they might have, they maybe not put together wonderfully. But the history that he tells on that knife is gripping. I absolutely love it. So please go, and this is not just a normal one. This is you'll miss out if you don't go over and check his channel.
Entertain and educate. That's
the way to do it.
That's what we're talking about here.
It is. So thank you everybody in the chat. Sorry you've been ignored tonight, but Michael was much more interested in you tonight. You didn't ask any good questions.
That's just a normal cheat. We haven't missed anything. We haven't missed. But thank you for the birthday wishes. At least you guys gave it up for me. Thanks a million, Michael. Pleasure. And now that I've actually got your email address in the account, we'll make sure to get the details to you for next time and time. Okay.
If it's me, you might be. All right. Take care, guys. Everybody. Thank you so much, Michael. If you want to stay behind, we'll just close this lot out.
Okay.
All the best, folks.